Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm very glad that today for Cooper Hospital Obs and Gynec Department, we are taking the educational activity initiative to talk about a very controversial but important topic, which is induction of labor. This has been there since decades, and there's a lot of controversy on what medication to use, how to go about it, and our Cooper team is going to be discussing a lot of these issues. The first one to start will be Dr. Sumaya Ansari. She's our resident and who is actually working as one of the frontline people. And so over to you, Sumaya. She's going to give us an overview of methods, decisions, and outcomes for induction of labor. Please start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am giving an overview of induction of labor. What are the method, decision, and outcomes? First, we have to know what is the induction of labor. Induction implies stimulation of the contraction before the spontaneous onset of the labor. And there is the 5 rights. We have to know what is the right medication, what is the right dose, and what is the right patient, that is indication of induction, and what is the right time and right route. How we have to give per vaginal, oral, all these things. First indication is risk of pregnancy continuing outfit. Means agar if we continue the pregnancy that harm baby or mother. In which indications are like if there is the PROM, premature rupture of the membrane, if there is the oligohydramnios, then there is a postdatism, then we do not have to continue the pregnancy. That's we require induction of the labor. Then methods are we can do medically mechanical method and then surgical method. In the medical method, there is the misoprostol prostaglandin E2 gel, which is come in the form of gel, also pessaries. And there is the mechanical method like Foley's induction, Foley's catheter induction, and the surgical is like we do ARM and sweeping of the membrane. Then what is the success in induction of the labor? What is the efficacy of that? That is birth within 24 hours of induction of labor. Mode of the birth, that is decrease the rate of the cesarean section. Safety for mother and baby both. Duration of the labor, additional intervention in labor and women's sleep. Concern expressed by the woman prior to the labor of induction birth. First we talk to the women about the induction. They are concerned about fear of cesarean delivery. They have an adverse fetal or maternal outcome. A shorter induction delivery interval was significantly associated with maternal satisfaction. Post-induction, 40% of women felt the most important aspect they would like to change about their induction would be the speed of induction of labor. Their UK national recommendation is misoprostol was given by them. Misoprostol should only be used for induction of labor for women who have an intrauterine death only, not the live fetus. Mechanical method, the Foley's catheter is a reasonable and effective alternative for cervical ripening and inducing the labor. Then mechanical method may compare to PG, that is prostaglandin E2 gel and misoprostol. When we compare both of these, there is no difference in cesarean section rate. There is no difference in neonatal or maternal morbidity. Reduced risk of hyperstimulation. Birth within 24 hours. Overall, no difference. Multiparous women less likely to deliver within 24 hours. Then post comparison is also done for mechanical, that is Foley's induction and all. That is Probat study have done. Foley's catheter versus PGE2 gel. However, Kefal term unfavorable cervix, and then we can give Foley's the cesarean rate is there is no difference between both of them. Comparison cost wise, there is no difference. Mean cost per woman is Foley's is also 3,000 something, and it is equal. And methods of induction by NICE. NICE is our National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence. They recommend that vaginal PGE2 gel is preferred method for induction of labor unless there are specific clinical reason for not using it. In particular, the risk of uterine hyperstimulation. It should be administered as a gel, tablet, or controlled release pessaries. Cost may vary over time and trust. unit should be taken into consideration when prescribed PGE2. For doses, one cycle of PGE2 gel, tablet or gel, one dose followed by the second dose after 6-hour interval. If labor is not established, up to maximum of 2 doses only. For one cycle of vaginal PGE2 pessaries, one dose over 24 hours is given. Then there is a conclusion is that induction of labor at term improves birth outcome, reduces perinatal death, reduces the rate of the cesarean section. Induction of labor rates likely to increase. Women's views are women prefer induction of labor to serial monitoring. After safety and mode of birth, duration is important. Balloon insertion less acceptable than pessaries. Then a conclusion is the prostaglandin mechanical method similar for mode for birth and safety. There is only differences in mechanical and prostaglandin are hyperstimulation rate, cost and resources use, acceptability, but within 24 hours. Vaginal prostaglandin probably best overall, slow risk preparation होते हैं. Thank you.
Dr. Sumaya has covered the methods of induction of labor in brief. Honestly, we can have a 2-hour discussion on this topic, but induction of labor, she has very nicely put across surgical and mechanical versus the medical methods. And she brought across the fact that in the UK, a lot of the guidelines are not allowing misoprostol for live fetuses. And I have to say that in MCGM, we have also received a guideline after the District Quality Assurance Committee meetings for quite a few years. Misoprostol, although it is has been recommended in certain situations and some people are using it in private, for live fetus, it is not recommended to be used for induction of labor. And in our hospitals, we are not using it. So hence, we need to look at what are the other options available. And for that, we have our next speaker, Dr. Milind is going to be discussing with us. So Dr. Milind is senior resident. So let's welcome Milind for the next talk.
Good afternoon to all.
Try to speak a little louder.
Today we'll be seeing the physiology of cervical ripening, the method of administration and storage and clinical evidence in use of prostaglandins, physiology of cervical ripening. So basically, as we all know, there are 4 phases of parturition. There is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So there is a quite difference between cervical softening and cervical ripening. We need to know that before using the drugs. Cervical softening is the initial stage of cervical remodeling seen in the phase 1 of parturition. It is characterized by greater tissue compliance, yet the cervix remains firm and unyielding. Hegas first described the palpable cervix softening of the lower uterine segment at 4 to 6 weeks of gestation, and the signs were once used to diagnose the pregnancy. It mainly results from increased vascularity, cellular hypertrophy, hyperplasia, and slow progressive compositional and structural changes in the extracellular matrix. So what is cervical ripening? Cervical ripening is seen in phase 2, principally involves cervical connective tissue changes termed as cervical ripening. This eventually leads to cervical yielding and dilating from forceful uterine contraction. The transition from softening to ripening begins weeks to days before the labor. The cervix is extracellular matrix rich tissue mainly consisting of matrix include collagen, the main component, the metacellular proteins, the glycosaminoglycans, proteoglycans, and elastic tissue. So as you can see in the diagram, we have this collagen fibers made up of fibrils, and before the ripenings, the collagen, we have the cross-link, and after the ripening, the cross-links have decreased. So this is the main thing that happens at the molecular level. So as we have seen, the pre-induction cervical ripening, there are 3 different methods: sweeping of membranes, pharmacological, and mechanical. Pharmacological methods for cervical ripening, mainly the prostaglandins. Prostaglandins not only improve the cervical score and cause the ripening, but they also initiate labor. Prostaglandins bring about biochemical changes in the ECM. They also stimulate the uterus to contract gently, leading to retraction and partially dilating the cervix. The need for oxytocin to induce or augment labor is thus reduced. Prostaglandins E2 and E1 are currently used. There are 2 preparations of prostaglandin E2 dinoproston are available. Preloaded intracervical gel that contains 0.5 mg of dinoproston in 2.5 ml gel. And we have an intravaginal insert that contains 10 milligrams of dinoproston in a time-release formulation. So we'll see the dinoproston now. It is an intravaginal insert containing 10 milligrams of PGE2. The release rate is 0.3 mg per hour for 24 hours. Control over the release pattern and the degree of cervical ripening. Single dose with reduced examination. Patient acceptability is good. Drug administration can be stopped by retrieving the tape at any time. Characteristics of the product: it is thin, oblique, semi-opaque hydrogel delivering device, size measuring 13 to 10 into 0.8 mm, weight approximately 241 milligram before insertion. The retrieval system is pouch plus withdrawal tape measuring 30 centimeter long. It has to be stored at minus 10 to minus 25 degrees Celsius for 3 years. It can be stored. Dinoprostone released from the hydrogel insert. Their long tail of polyethylene oxide are cross-linked to produce a polymer. Dinoprostone is held in the hydrogel until the product becomes moistened upon administration. Approximately 0.3 mg of dinoprostone is released every hour over a period of 24 hours. Pre-administration of prophase. The storage of prophase must be at minus 10 to minus 25 degree. It has to be stored in the ice section of the refrigerator. It need not to be thawed before administration. Method of administration. It has to be held between the index and the middle finger. Introduced into the vagina assisted by a small amount of aqueous gel. Position behind the posterior vaginal fornix. Position the insert transversely to ensure it remains in situ. Post administration, the patient should be in the recombinant position for approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and we need to set intervals for monitoring the patient. What are the side effects? The uterine tachysystole, as defined by ACOG, is it defined as more than 5 contractions in 10 minutes. It should always be quantified by presence and absence of FHR abnormality. Uterine hypertonus, hyperstimulation, hypercontractility are no longer used or defined. Usually, this tachysystole usually, if they develop, we can remove the insert by pulling the tail and reverse the effect. Method of removal: we need to gently pull the retrieval cord. Indication for removal: 12 hours after we have inserted the insert and after the onset of labor, and or any side effects are there. So what is the scientific evidence for this? There are studies, published studies. So in Yair et al. 2018, a total 169 women underwent cervical ripening with dinoprostone slow releasing vaginal insert were included in the study. Dinoprostone slow release vaginal insert was successful in achieving vaginal deliveries 148 of 169, that is 87.6%, while sufficient ripening was achieved in 140, that is 83%. Factors associated with successful vaginal delivery were multiparity and younger gestational age at delivery. Jane Thomas et al. In 2014 provided Cochrane review of 70 trials and including 11,000 women given vaginal prostaglandins E2 compared with placebo or no treatment. They noted prostaglandin PGE2 probably increase the chances of vaginal delivery in 24 hours. They increase the uterine hyperstimulation with fetal heart changes, but do not affect or may reduce the C-section rates. In Iran, Ashwal et al. 2014 did a cohort study to compare slow-releasing vaginal insert PGE2 with serial vaginal tablets of PGE2 for cervical ripening and induction. Overall, 639 women enrolled, 213 treated with PGE2 tablets and 426 with slow-releasing vaginal insert. Vaginal insert were associated with short interval initiation to ripening interval and higher rate of delivery within 24 hours. Vaginal insert was also associated with increased rate of tachysystole. However, the rate of C-section or operated delivery due to non-assuring FHR was similar. This is the final study. YB Tekin et al. Did a retrospective study of maternal fetal outcome after labor induction using dinoprostone vaginal pessary in midwife-led and obstetrician-led labor management. Labor induction outcome, delivery modes, rate of admission to the neonatal intensive care units were compared. A total of 405 women from, that is 40.5% from midwife-led unit and 59.5% from an obstetrician-led unit participated. There was no significant difference between the two groups in C-section rate or the neonatal intensive care unit administration rate. Non-reassuring fetal heart rate and uterine stimulation risk were higher in the obstetric-led unit. Postpartum blood transfusion rate was higher in the midwife-led units. Labor induced with prophase is safe during both with the midwife-led and the obstetrician-led management. Regarding the 24-hour use, et al. Study revealed that prostaglandin E2 release rate was linear over 24 hours with intact membrane. The two comparative trials with Bing et al. And Hoyer et al. Allowed the vaginal insert to be left in place for up to 24 hours to 22.5 hours respectively. The efficacy of dinoprostone vaginal insert and misoprostol was similar. No evidence of adverse effect associated with the 24 hours use of controlled release dinoprostone. The trial shows that the potential for prolonged use of controlled release dinoprostone when 24 hours exposure has not resulted in adequate ripening or onset of labor. So the controlled release is now approved for 24 hours in Europe and India. So the main difference between the vaginal insert and the intracervical gel is with the insert a single dose is sufficient, and for intracervical we need to repeated doses have to be needed. It is easy to administer without involvement of stirrups and speculum or syringes. The removal is easy, reliable, and quick. It is slow release and ease of removal confer precise control over the degree of ripening, and ambulation permitted 20 to 30 minutes after the insertion. The conclusion being it is effective and safe, controlled and sustained release, need for only a single dose, user-friendly, may help reduce the need of oxytocin augmentation. Patient acceptability is good. Presence of retrieval system allows us control over the degree of ripening, and drug administration can be stopped by the insert. Thank you.
So Dr. Milind has covered the points comparing PGE2 gel and the pessary. And what is really important is that a lot of people have a misconception that first of all, it's not available in India. I'm happy to say that in our own hospital, it has been made available. The important issue is that having the freezer facility and that it should be stored at the proper temperature. Otherwise, it may lose its efficacy. And another important point which Milind pointed out was that there is no need to thaw. It can be directly used. A very, very important advantage of this is the fact that it can be pulled out to remove. Whereas the other gel, once it is put inside, it is technically very difficult to take it out. Hence here now, he has shown some of the international studies, and we believe in what we call as evidence-based medicine. So until it is actually practiced and used, a lot of things do not come into clinical practice. So I'm very happy now to introduce our last speaker, Dr. Ashish Sable, who is my student for DNB, and he has successfully completed an ethics-approved clinical trial comparing the use of this PGE2 gel as versus the insert. And here we will have Ashish discussing what were the results and the findings from our own in-house study at Cooper Hospital. Over to you, Ashish.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hereby, I will be summarizing my thesis topic, which was a randomized trial between dinoprostone slow-release pessary and dinoprostol gel for induction of labor, which was done under guidance of our respected Dr. Reenavani ma'am, and my co-guide was Dr. Pramila Yadav ma'am. Primarily, the aim was to compare efficacy between dinoprostone pessary and versus dinoprostol gel regarding induction of labor. Primary objective was to study the spontaneous vaginal delivery rate with the both groups, cesarean delivery rate to calculate mean induction to delivery interval in both the groups, to calculate need for oxytocin augmentation, that is supplementary agent. Secondary objective was to study maternal and fetal outcome and if any side effects. Materials and method. It was a prospective randomized comparative study conducted in our own institute with patients admitted in our hospital OPD for induction of labor. Obstetric evaluation was done primarily by the senior in the unit, and all patients were confirmed that they are fitting in inclusion or exclusion criteria. Inclusion criteria was singleton pregnancy, primi gravida, multigravida up to gravida 3 with previous vaginal deliveries, fetal cephalic presentation, term gestation, preferentially with normal fetal heart rate patterns. Exclusion criteria was previous cesarean section or previous history of uterine scar, multiple gestation, fetal anomaly, malpresentation or transverse lab breech presentation, history of any uterine surgery or prostaglandin allergy or placental malposition like placenta previa. Study design, we have divided the study group in two forms, two groups, to Group A and Group B. Group A was for pessaries, dinoprostone pessary form, and Group B was for the gel form. The number of patients in both the group were 50. So we had studied for about 100 cases in total. Parameters to be assessed was induction to labor interval, induction to delivery interval, rate of failed induction, Apgar score at both at 1 minute and 5 minutes, and need for addition of any another agent like oxytocin for labor augmentation. analysis was done. Primarily, a Microsoft Excel sheet was prepared. All data was transferred to that, and then it was assessed by SPSS software. Qualitative data was presented in frequency and percentage, and then analyzed by chi-square test. Quantitative data was presented by mean and compared with mean and standard deviation, and tested by t-test. P-value of 0.05 was taken as level of significance. Considering about result, in both the gel and pessary form, gravity of the patient, that is both primary gravida and multigravida, were comparable to each other and not statistically significant. Were not differing with each other. Both the cases, like gel and pessary, gestational age, gravity, and were comparable to each other. Only thing is that considering about the reason for induction, post-datism was one of the common indication. Then second is associated with severe preeclampsia, GDM, changes of mild oligohydramnios or polyhydramnios were some another indication for induction. Normal vaginal delivery was the most common type of delivery in both the study groups, GL and pessary. It was 76 and 82%, followed by emergency LACS. Statistically significant difference was not found in both the groups. Meconium stained amniotic fluid was the most common fetal side effect in both the groups, followed by meconium aspiration syndrome. Birth asphyxia was also seen in gel, one of the gel patient, but it was not statistically significant. Considering the maternal side effect, vomiting was the maternal side effect in both the study group, followed by diarrhea. Hyperstimulation was not seen in the pessary format. Other that vomiting, diarrhea were still not comparable to each other. There were not any significant difference was not seen. Mean modified Bishop's at the time of induction, it was found that it was successful induction was seen in the pessary format, and induction to delivery interval also was less in the pessary form. Oxytocin augmentation was observed higher in dinoproston gel group. It was about 14% as compared to dinoproston pessary group. It was about 8%. When compared, it was not statistically significant though. NSO admission rate was observed higher in dinoproston gel group as compared to dinoproston pessary group. Again, here the statistical significance was not established. To conclude, dinoproston in the pessary form is comparable and safe to use. In the same way, we use the dinoproston in the gel form for induction of labor. Induction to delivery interval and need for oxytocin augmentation was less in dinoproston pessary form. Besides, dinoproston pessary is convenient for both for the patient and both for the doctor. And second thing, we can remove it whenever we feel that the patient is going hyperstimulation or we are having fetal heart changes, tachycardia or bradycardia due to hyperstimulation. But accordingly, at the end, no significant difference in operative caesarean delivery rate in both pessary and gel was seen. Further research will be required to determine whether this practice will improve efficacy for our obstetric department. Thank you.
Lead to conclusion on. Thank you, Ashish. Any questions from the audience? You can ask now. Ashish, you say. So Ashish, first of all, I would like to congratulate you. It's actually very difficult to do a clinical trial in today's times to get permissions and go through it. And to do a prospective randomized study is even more difficult. So it was a lot of perseverance. I think we should give a special hand or round of applause to him. It took a lot of effort and lot of follow-up. And you may first keep thinking, he kept saying there is no statistically significant difference. Don't look at it in a negative way. In fact, even if there is no difference, it means that the methods you are testing are equally good. So then you look at other parameters, that is it convenient, is it available, is the patient happy, and that we haven't actually studied so much in detail, but what was presented by one of the earlier speakers, and it was also analyzed in our patients. The patients were more comfortable. There was the patient satisfaction was little more, number of per vaginal examinations was less, and need for augmentation with another method was also less. So I think this was a very useful study, and Ashish, all the best to you for your exam. And I hope this discussion has been helpful to all of you. And I would encourage each unit to think positively that you should use the other method. It is now available in our hospital and it is kept in the freezer in the labor room. So please choose your patient judiciously, and either method, since both the methods are available and we are not using misoprostol in our hospital, either method are available clinically and you should use them at your discretion, keeping patient's interest and safety in mind. Thank you all for a patient hearing. Thank you.